Hello and welcome to the All Stars team. Myself and Steven Poacher are going to pick it. We haven't previously decided what way we're going to go, so it's live on YouTube as we speak. So please get in your comments and let us know if you think there's anyone that we haven't considered for a certain position, somebody who should be getting in that we haven't talked about. Whatever it is, let us know. Steven, first of all, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, Shane. Not too bad. Looking forward to picking this. Sat down and had a bit of a think about different positions and the likes of that. But as you say, we can have a bit of to and fro in here now over the next couple of minutes, anyway.
Yeah. Well, in goals, first off, do we have to, the way there's so many years where Stephen Cluxton misses out on the All Star, probably because his team are so dominant and he hasn't enough to do. Are we looking at him for this position, or are we thinking maybe Raymond Gallagher, Evan Comerford, even David Clark, for example? He wasn't at fault for either goal in the All Ireland final.
Well, I think Shane will have to consider all four provincial winners. All four goalkeepers had a big impact in all of in all their games. Like for example, even Evan Comfort, scored for play for Tipperary. It's an honourable mention for him. Cluxton is Cluxton. He's the best there ever was. It's simple as that, and very very hard to argue against him. But I'm making a case for Ramey Gallagher. Before probably go on to Ramey Gallagher, David Clark for me as well has had a really good championship. Shane, Mayo had 12 kickouts from 12 in the first half against Dublin on Sunday past. There 12 from 12. That's unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. Cluxton had 5 from 10 in the first half. And that's probably testament to how good a press Mayo put on, of course. But what impressed me about Cluxton on Saturday past was that every time he lost a long kick out, he went short with the next one, and they lost 2 long kickouts in a row consecutively on 2 occasions in the first half, and he went short on the next one, and that was a great bit of game management and experience from him as well. But for me, Shane, just with the championship, the fact that, go back to the very first round against Monaghan where Cavan wouldn't have gone through, only for Ramey Gallagher and his long range free kicking, I would have Ramey Gallagher in there, just simply from the point of view being Shane that, he pulled off some super saves in all the games. His kickouts, improved dramatically, throughout the championship, and for me, he has to be number one.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, look, I actually would tend to agree with you on this one. So I'm going to bring it up on screen here and we'll get Raymond Gallagher into it. There'll probably be a couple of dubs out there who disagree, but feel free to get your comment in, and you never know, you might actually change our mind. We are happy to listen to reason despite, I suppose, our form in that sort of area. So for now, I think we're both happy to go with Raymond Gallagher in the goals. So cornerbacks. I'll probably be called a little bit biased because he's my club mate, but Michael Fitzsimons, I think, has a very good shout being in the cornerback here.
No, there's no argument. There's no argument. I think it's nailed on. I was chatting last night, actually, myself and Benny Calder and Martin Clark were chatting about this last night, and I was saying to the lads, I think he's the best man marker in Ireland at the minute, Shane. I think he's a brilliant defender. He seems a nice chap too, because even when he absolutely buried Lee Keegan, he was standing over him apologising. So he seems a decent bloke. He doesn't have the same nasty streak as Johnny Cooper by the looks of it. But he seems a nice guy. And look, see, for me, I've been a long admirer of him, Shane, and I've got him nailed it on number 2 for me. Absolutely.
Yeah. Did he deserve a red card?
Well, someone actually read out the complete rule last night that if it's a square-on tackle to the chest, then it is actually dangerous play, and it is a red card. But I know it doesn't make a difference, because I've had this argument before. He's not that sort of a player. He doesn't have a track record of picking up red cards, of picking up real nasty tackles, late tackles. So I think it was one of those ones where he just lined him up, seen him, and hit him. And listen, I have to be honest, fair play to Keegan for getting up and playing on, because that was some belt, So you have to take your hat off to Lee Keegan in that respect. And listen, it's probably honourable. It's probably an honourable mention, for the likes of Owen Merkin, Lee Keegan. It's honourable mentions for those guys, Shane. Over the last Killian Clark, we could probably mention as well. Had a decent championship as well. So. But for me, Fitzsimmons takes the number 2 jersey, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually playing soccer with Michael Fitzsimon's brother during the week, and I was saying in front of a couple of lads, because there was a lot of lads who were related to like Conor Callahan and to Michael Fitzsimons. I was just saying Fitzy should have got a red card, almost half looking for a reaction. But yeah, it was one of those ones where a lot of the time it is given, but I don't think we can dispute the fact that he should be in this team. I think that's an interesting point you make about Killian Clark, and maybe he can fit in here somewhere in the full back line. He did mark Michael Murphy and marked him really well in that Ulster final. I thought he more or less kept him out of the game, certainly when it got to the heel of the hunt, and then did quite well on Dean Rock also in the All-Ireland semi-final. And there's not too many lads that are kind of taking on those sort of tasks and coming out with a lot of credit.
No, and I think it's probably worth noting as well, Shane, without having my Ulster hat on here, to come through the Ulster Championship from the preliminary round as well is probably a greater feat, than any of the 4 provincial winners, So it's Gavin, you need to look at Gavin's performances, and you need to sort of honour their performances throughout the championship as well by giving these guys, their standing and their honourable note. And it's not, it's not a token gesture, no, it's a genuine compliment that he had a really good championship. Does Fitzsimons play hurling, does he?
I only ever saw him train once or twice over the year, and in terms of ball skills it wasn't pretty, but by God the man can get around the pitch. Apparently when he was under 21, he used to be one of the lads that would solo straight up the centre and give the ball off to somebody, and his athleticism would make him quite an important player. So
yeah, very good.
Yeah, okay, so like if Killian Clark, I think he's in the conversation here. I think Davy Byrne also has to be in the conversation for the full back line. Lee Keegan, I would see him being in there as well. Who else would you consider in the full back line here, like number 3 and number 4?
Well, I think for me, I would have Padraig Faulkner in at number 3.
Would you? Yeah. Do you feel he played back there enough to be number 3?
Yeah, I do, because the way the game is now anyway, Shane, there's flexibility. There is flexibility in the positions, and it's not as if we're putting Paddy Faulkner here at like 10 or 12. We're putting him in a position that he lines out in. We're putting him in a position where he wears the number 3 jersey on his back. There may be times when he comes out to 6 and plays, but for me, Shane, I just think back to the Down game, and it stands out for me, the leadership, and like Down were 8 points up, and Paddy Faulkner made a diving block on his own goal line to stop a goal, which would have certainly put Gavin out of the championship at that stage. The drive in him from the full back line in the second half of that game, coming forward, winning kickouts, putting his body on the line. I just thought he had a fantastic Ulster championship. I thought he had a real warrior of an Ulster championship. He didn't have a bad game against Dublin. All right, Brady probably outshined him at 6 that night, but it's very difficult, Shane, and it's probably very unfair to measure Gavin's performances against Dublin, in the semi-final. I think you have to measure them over the 4 games at Ulster. Gavin played 5 games, Shane. There was a possibility that Galway could have reached an All-Ireland final by playing 2 games. So we'll have to sort of level it up to where, to where the teams are in comparison to who they've played and how many games they've played and the quality of the opposition. Like Gavin beat Monaghan, they beat Donegal. 2 established Division 1 teams, 2 teams that are touted as being, top 6 in this country, and then obviously they beat Antrim and beat Down, but it was the manner in which they beat Down as well, coming back from 8 points down at half time. But for me, Davy Byrne, absolutely. Davy Byrne, Chris Barrett, they obviously deserve mentions as well. From a full back perspective, Davy Byrne has had a great championship, but then again, how much did he have to do? And I thought in the first half against Mayo on Saturday night he was run red. I thought Gillian O'Connor got the better of him on numerous occasions. I thought he looked at 6s and 7s in the first half at times, and how often is he really tested, and how often does he really have to, put the shoulder to the wheel as such. So listen, he's a fantastic player. Davy Byrne's a brilliant footballer, great athlete, supremely strong. Was good at carrying the ball out as well, but for me, I've gone with Paddy Faulkner, but you may make an argument for someone else.
Yeah, well, when that Mayo game was in the heel of the hunt, I felt that Davy Byrne came out with a few balls and came soloing out the other end of the field, driving Dublin in the right direction. I thought he was impressive, and I do take your point absolutely that the difficulty level of his task in most games when they're playing against teams that they're going to beat handily, like Westmeath, Laois, obviously they battered Meath as well. So the difficulty level isn't quite as high as it is for the likes of Paddy Faulkner, who's taken on some teams that are in most cases actually fancy to beat Cavan during this championship. So I think I'm happy to go along with you here, and put Paddy Faulkner in at full back. So then we have to move on to number 4. Now you could still put Davy Byrne in here. I want to, as much as possible, keep players in their positions and not have any of this crack like Brian Howard picked as a centre back last year in the All-Stars. It just didn't make sense to me. So what about Lee Keegan? Can he get into this conversation? He was having a great All-Ireland final until he got buried basically by Michael Fitzsimons. And what stood out to me in the first half was when Mayo were struggling to actually drive forward, and Paddy Durkin wasn't right, but midway through the first half it seemed to me that Lee Keegan just decided, I'm going to start running at Dublin. He came out a few times and he put his team on the front foot. So I think he's had a good season, plus there's that. Who are you looking at for number 4?
Well, obviously, I've mentioned Owen Merkin, for his flexibility, just simply for his flexibility and his versatility. Shane, he's been around the block now. He looks about 12. He's been around the block for about 4 or 5 seasons now, and he's established himself now as a regular for Dublin and can play anywhere really, but does line out at 4. But for me, Shane, I've gone with Oisín Mullen, from Mayo. I think he's in a brilliant championship. He's the new kid on the block. He's playing. He looks like a lad who has no fear whatsoever. I thought in the first half, I think him, Kilkenny, and Ryan O'Donoghue had the top 3 possession counts in the first half against Dublin on Saturday night. And there was 2 kickouts in particular. The Con O'Callaghan outfall that Dublin have tried this year and have trialled this year, and it's worked so well for them. Mayo shut that down, but the reason they shut it down, Shane, was because Oisín Mullen was absolutely ferocious in the way he attacked that ball and the way he drove Mayo forward in that first half. And I just think there can be no question about him going in there in the corner, because I think he's in a brilliant championship, and I think he had a really good All-Ireland final, considering that was his first ever All-Ireland final, and the pressure and the space that an occasion like that brings. I thought he really stood up to the mark on Saturday.
And did you think it was fair that his man Con O'Callaghan got man of the match? Now, first of all, it's a fair measure of what James Horan thinks of him that he puts him on Con. And number 2, I thought they both had a performance where you could say both were under pressure by the other at times, and then both came out with a lot of credit, because Con got 1-1 from play, but Mullen, I think he won 3 kickouts in the first half, one which he caught cleanly over Con. He scored a point and he drove his team forward and he was under pressure. So I think they both played quite well.
It's the man of the match one I'm not saying it was a strange one. Conor O'Callaghan had a good game. Kieran Kilkenny stood up at different stages. I didn't think anybody, Shane, on Saturday night really had that, complete standout performance. I thought it was a patchy game where, people came to life in different stages. Like, for example, in the first half, Brian Fenton, for his standards, was relatively quiet, but in the second half, he won crucial balls, Shane. He won some fantastic ball in the second half for Dublin, some really, really key crucial catches. There's so many arguments you can make for man of the match, on Saturday night past. You can look at possession counts, and you can look at tackle counts, and you can look at scores. And man of the match for me, I don't even know who picks it. I'm not sure who picks it, but for me, it's a very.
I think Tomás O'Shea picked this one.
Who picks it?
I think Tomás O'Shea picked it on the Sunday game, or the Saturday games, I suppose it would have been.
I must put up my text and give him a bit of stick there over that. No, but listen, he listened here. Look, it's probably the point I'm probably saying is it's a very opinionated thing, man of the match. You could argue about for 3 players, I could argue for 3 players, and it's just one of those things. It's one of those things that has to be given, unfortunately. You know what I mean? It's tradition and it's history, and I remember actually even years ago having to pick one for a school match, and I just remember at the time, the Saturday night teacher had an argument over it, and I was thinking to myself, this is going to cause more hassle than what it's worth in years to come,
You never should have agreed to that. You never should have agreed to that. Okay.
You can't win,
Okay, well look, that's the full back line. We've gone with Michael Fitzsimons, Pádraig Faulkner and Oisín Mullen. Moving into the half back line now. Are you happy enough to look at, let's say, Patrick Durkin as a half back? He was obviously in the full back line against Dublin, the All-Ireland final. You could see he wasn't right, and that was probably one of the big factors why Mayo didn't have as many driving runs up through the centre. But I actually don't 100% know if I'd have him in this team. I was obviously I'm really impressed with him as a player. I think he's absolutely brilliant. and he had some great stuff against Roscommon. He had some good moments against Galway. Against Tipperary, he was also quite good, but his man Brian Fox scored a goal, and in the first half alone, Durkin dropped 3 shots short into Evan Comerford's hands. So, this is fine margins, and it's all players who play brilliantly, but if you're looking for little reasons why you might edge them out, there's a couple.
Yeah. Listen, I can see your argument, but for me, Shane, at the same time, I think he's one of the best players in the country.
Oh, yeah.
I really do. I think that's not a wild statement. I think he is. I think it's probably, if you actually look at Kieran Kilkenny's influence in the first half of Saturday night in comparison to Kieran Kilkenny's influence in the second half, what happened on Saturday night, Shane, was that Dublin were using, Mayo were using number 6.
Stephen Cohen.
Cohen. I mixed him up with Matty Ryan, but Mayo were using Cohen as nearly like the sweeper around the D, and you could see Cohen every time they lost the ball getting back in there. You could see him looking left, you could see him looking right, you could see him scanning behind himself, and Paddy Durkin was picking up Kieran Kilkenny, and there was a little bit of frustration at Kilkenny. I don't know if you remember it, but Kilkenny missed quite a simple mark.
Yeah.
He snapped at a shot, he put a shot wide as well. There was nearly a drive in Kilkenny to prove a point of, I need a score here, I need to get a score, and I could sense a little bit of frustration in the first half for Kieran Kilkenny. But in the second half, when Cohen had to go back on to Kilkenny, it was particularly, Shane, and I actually noted it here in my notes, it was around about the 57th minute that Kieran Kilkenny really started to get the grips of the game, won a couple of frees, kicked a couple of scores, and that's no disrespect to Cohen, because his role in the lead up to that final would have been very nailed on, very specific. You're going to do this, but they didn't foresee Paddy Durkin coming off at half time with an injury. And I think if Paddy Durkin had stayed in the field, Shane, I'm not saying Mayo would have won the game, but the game might have taken a different shape at that stage. It might have just taken a different shape. So I have him at 5. I do have him at 5. I don't think there's been any real standout players at 5 this year, that has really stood out. Obviously, the other side of the field at 7, you've had Rodney McDaid, you've had Owen McLaughlin, you've had some great performances there. I've gone with Durkin. I've gone with Durkin at 5.
Yeah. I agree with you in a lot of senses, and I think Stephen Cohen being put full back on Kieran Kilkenny was kind of a mark of the lack of depth of Mayo, and it was probably a position where Stephen Cohen was going to find difficult. So I kind of looked at it when I saw it start of the second half, or early in the second half, that was the matchup. I said to the guy closest to me, I think that Kilkenny's going to come good here, because it didn't suit the makeup of Stephen Cohen. So I think that's more harsh on him and a tough day for him because of things he just can't control. Like, you might put you in corner forward, it might be a position that doesn't suit you. Put you a full back, then you might excel. Do you mean, some lads are suited to certain positions. So, I think we're on the same wavelength there. But, I think in the half back line, there's a bit of flexibility that we could put 2 left wing backs here. There is a bit of swapping around. There's flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what about Kieran Brady, Holla Brady, as I hear them roaring out on the field as they were playing the All-Ireland semi-final? Robbie McDaid, of course. Do you know who are you looking at here? Like, can we put Killian Clark perhaps in the centre back line because of that fluidity you've talked about?
Yeah, listen, Brady. There's a massive case for Brady, Shane. He had a really really strong driving game against Dublin, and he took the fight to them on many occasions. You've John Small as well, obviously. Who for me is it's only my opinion, but I think I said Stephen Clux, and I think he's the heartbeat of that defence. I think he's a real general. There's a real ruthlessness is probably the most polite way of describing it in his play.
He'd age without thought.
That I really admire. I really admire it because people describe him as other things that aren't as polite, but I think every team needs one of them. I think every team needs one of them, and I always go back, Shane, to when Tyrone were competing against Dublin, and Peter Hart used to have huge influences on games, but for some reason John Small always got under Peter Hart's skin, and John Small would have always picked him up, and there was that little edge, that little ruthless streak about him, and I've him in at 6, and I think for the championship that he had, Robbie McDaid has to be in here in some capacity as well, particularly the fact that he kicked 1-4 in the All Ireland semi final from play, I think, if I'm led to believe. So Robbie's for me, Shane, I think me and you spoke about this at the start of the show, way back in October. I was worried about the loss of Jack McCaffrey. The fact that, Dessie Farrell's coming in as a new manager, you're losing probably your greatest attacking threat from half back. And you're looking at Robbie McDade and you're thinking, I spoke to a couple of Kilcoo lads when they played
Ballyboden.
Ballyboden, last year, and Robbie McDade was playing, and they would have said to me that they didn't earmark him, there wasn't a real wow factor about him, and they weren't that concerned about his influence on the game, but it just says so much for him that he can slide in there and replace Jack McCaffrey, and it's not to make a difference, Shane, and I think that's probably testament to the lad. And I listened to his interview on Saturday night as well, and there was obviously a genuine delight and joy and real, satisfaction that he's actually won an All-Ireland now by playing, and playing regularly, because it's obviously not the same to be a number 30 or a number 31 or a number 32. It means more when you're influencing the game and you're on the pitch. So I've gone with him as well. So but listen, we could flip a coin between McLaughlin and a number of them as well. He's had a great year. McLaughlin's had a great year from Mayo as well at wing back, driving forward, some great marauding runs from wing back as well. So there's and look, Brian Howard played there last year or a couple of years ago, and so but I don't know. That's what I've gone with anyway.
Okay, what about Jared Smith for Cavan?
Yeah.
So, like, if we're picking,
I'm just thinking of influences here. I'm thinking of how much they've influenced the game. I think Cavan's real big influencers were Garoyd McKiernan and Thomas Gallagher. I think they had a greater influence on games than their halfbacks did. That's only my opinion. I think they had a greater influence on games than their halfbacks did. I just think that, those guys, particularly small at 6. I think small at 6, can be the heartbeat of most teams. So.
Yeah. I'm on board for John Small at 6. Then I think it is a bit of a toss-up between Paddy Durkin and Jared Smith and Robbie McDade. I think I'll put Robbie McDade in here. I think Robbie McDade certainly deserves it.
Yeah.
After that, I'll let you have the cast and vote between Paddy Durkin, Jared Smith, and basically anyone else in contention, the likes of Killian Clark.
Well, I'm going to go. I've Durkin, and I'm going to go with Durkin. I think he's one of the best. I really do, Shane.
Okay.
He's one of the best.
Okay, I've thrown him in there. Just a couple of comments in. There's a person, Kia1. So far, his team is Raymond Gallagher, Michael Fitzsimons, John Small at fullback here, Oisin Mullen, Paddy Durkin, Killian Clark, James McCarthy. Okay, and then we have another guy commenting in saying Michael Fitzsimons Player of the Year. What would you think of that?
Big statement. Big statement. But listen, as I said, I have huge admiration for him, huge respect for him. He's had a brilliant season, but he only has to mark once a year, the final.
Okay. Moving on to midfield then. I think this is possibly going to be one of the easiest sectors of the field, because Brian Fenton is set in stone, and I feel like Thomas Gallagher is almost set in stone. But at the same time, I do want to mention the likes of Matty Ruane and even Ian Maguire, because when Tipperary beat Cork in the Munster final, a lot of Cork players didn't perform up to their usual level. But I thought Ian Maguire took the game to Tipperary all the time, and Stephen O'Brien had a tough time trying to nail him down. I also thought he was very good against Kerry. So I'd give him a shout here. I think Liam Casey was pretty good. Colin O'Riordan had a brilliant Munster final, maybe a quieter All-Ireland semi-final. Like, do we look at Brian Howard at midfield as well? Because I thought he was probably man of the match in the All-Ireland final, even only coming on at half-time.
Well, I've obviously gone, I've listed a number of players like yourself, Shane. Probably echoing yourself. Stephen O'Brien kept, honourable mention. Matty Ruane, works his socks off. Brian Howard. Thomas Gallagher can come in there as well. Listen, I think we'd be mad if we didn't just say Brian Fenton right now. That's done. Okay,
yeah,
that's done. and you nearly put the wee C in brackets beside his name there, and give him the captaincy there at number 8. But I've gone with James McCarthy, okay, and I'll tell you the reason behind that.
Right.
I just think I just think he's. I think if someone said to me the other evening, I think it was Spanish and Ledger actually at Carlo, maybe mentioned this to me, chatting on the boat, and he says, Stevie, if you look at those two lads, he says if there weren't inter-county Gaelic footballers, they'd probably be running in the Olympics for Ireland at 800 metres or something. They've got that. They're just two fine specimens of athletes, Shane. For me, McCarthy is just an absolute out-and-out athlete. He can cover ground. He can get forward. He can track back. He's good on the ball. He can break lines. And again, the John Small, he has that ruthless edge, and that real, what I would call, born winner. You know what I mean? And will do anything to get over the line. And I like that about him. I really like that about him. And that for me, Shane, is the heartbeat of that team. It's the engine of that team. That is the engine. 8 and 9 is the engine of Dublin, and McCarthy and Fenton for me have been absolutely outstanding all season. Absolutely outstanding. And I just 8 All-Irelands. He's in legendary status now. Absolute legendary status. And Shane, I suppose the last comment before I let you come in there is, for me, it's his flexibility as well. He's played at 5, he's played at 7. He's done man marking jobs. And now he's in the middle of the field, and himself and Brian Fenton are some partnership.
Okay, so I do agree with you that, in a career sense, he'll go down as one of the greatest players of all time, James McCarthy, no doubt about that. And before going back to the merits of him and his team, Brian Fenton, he's set in stone here. There's no problem. We both agree here. He's in that team, so that's fine. And I'd say most people would. If anyone has a comment saying why he shouldn't, please get it in. But I'd say he will be. But James McCarthy, did he do, and he set up that goal at the start of the All-Ireland by bursting through, winning the throw-up, getting away from Aidan O'Shea, 1-2, hand passes it into Dean Rock. So he got him on the front foot, as he often does. But the difficulty level that he had all season, was that as high a difficulty level as what Thomas Galligan did? Now, I know you could push for a case, let's put Galligan full forward. I think we got to have Galligan midfield if he's going to be in this team. Midfield is the only place to put him. Is the difficulty level of what James McCarthy did, he's a better player than Galligan, but is the difficulty level as high? So that's why I'd be thinking we need to have Galligan in here.
Yeah, I was thinking Galligan at 10, I like...
No, none of this nonsense now. He didn't play at number 10, I'm not having it.
I like my 10 and 12 to workers,
No way. There's no, he didn't play there. We can't do it. It's a very specific role. No one knows better than you. It's a very specific role.
Okay. No, but listen, look, if we can't squeeze Galligan in as an industrious wing forward, then yeah, I would give him the nod, but it's a coin toss between him and McCarthy. But I suppose when I reflect back, I can't go against my own principles when I talked at the start about the achievement of what Cavan achieved, Shane in Ulster, and it was heroic stuff. The Ulster final was that performance from him, as I said to you before, it was hero stuff. It was diehard stuff. You know what I mean? It was the Rocky Balboa in the Russian, and on the ropes and battered and bruised. So, and I think it was probably one of the most iconic images of the championship. Him giving that interview and the eye busted open and the blood streaming from the face, and I think when people say it was one of the years, that epitomised it. So yeah, I'll go with you there. So we'll go with Fenton and Galligan then.
Yeah. The thing with Galligan, he also got Player of the Month. So again, James McCarthy is a better footballer, and in the All-Ireland semi-final, Galligan was kept very quiet. But in the heel of the hunt, in the 4 games it took to win Ulster, getting a Player of the Month along the way, I think he was so crucial. Even the first day against Monaghan, when things were going very badly, I think he started winning marks and big possessions. So I think he's definitely in here. And but if anyone has any comments, let us know if they think we're wrong. Now we move into the half-forward line. I think Niall Scully, and you could almost say Niall Scully and Sean Bugler, they're both doing pretty much the same job at different sides of the field. Yeah. But for first off to nail between the two of those, just if you were to look at the All-Ireland final in isolation, I would say Scully would just about edge it between the two of them.
Yeah, listen, I've Scully in my team. Every team needs a worker. Every team needs industry. And for me, Shane, for me, 10 and 12 are so important in the modern game. It's a very unselfish role. It's not the it's not a sexy jersey to wear as such, number 11. Everybody wants to have number 11 and number 14 on their backs, or number 15, but nobody wants to have number 10 or 12 because they know what's in front of them. But your GPS stats are required to be so high, they're required to be through the roof. But on top of that, Shane, you're not just asking a 10 or 12 to track back and do the hard shift, you're asking them actually to contribute on the scoreboard as well. And Scully did that in the All-Ireland final, which is probably against the grain for him, but he's not a big scoring threat for Dublin, but he did get a score. And Poacher got a score as well. He got a score in the first half as well. So, there's argument for the both of them, but, honourable mentions obviously for, McLaughlin and David O'Connor of Mayo, just complete warriors, absolute soldiers, have been flying the flag for Mayo for a long, long time. And I'm talking about 10 and 12 here, by the way. I'm not talking about number 11. So for me, I have Scully and David O'Connor as my 10 and 12. David worked well with his back, even though at times he picked up Brian Franklin. But I know from chatting to the likes of Buckley and that Tony in the past, Tony would have said to me that David O'Connor was he would have died with his boots off, the work rate that he put in and the effort he put in. I don't know if you remember the performance in, you remember the night that Mayo beat them, that Kildare beat them in Newbridge?
Yeah,
he was playing midfield. He actually ran himself, Shane. Now, when people say ran himself to a standstill, he literally did run himself to a standstill. It was ridiculous. I think he actually broke down in the corner with cramp or whatever did on the game. And he just couldn't run anymore, and I just think he has everything that you want in a footballer. The mentality, the industry, the effort, and the quality as well. He's a decent footballer, and I think that's something that's lost sometimes whenever you look at players at that position. You sort of think, oh, they're workers and that's all they are, and they're not, but what they have is they've got a tremendous discipline to take one for the team and such, so for me, I've gone with Scully at 10, and I've gone with David O'Connor at 12.
And would you be thinking Martin Riley is in this conversation?
Possibly, but I just don't think he's at the same level as those guys. Even McLaughlin, like Kevin McLaughlin, I think me and you had this conversation a couple of weeks before they played. They played Tyrone in the league, and we were talking about how they played him at 6, Shane.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand that. And I think I actually said to you on the show, for me, he's been one of the best wing half forwards in the country over the last 6-7 years. So it was good to see him back in that number 10 jersey, and I think McLaughlin deserves a real honourable mention from Mayo, because I think he's a great footballer. I really do, and I think he's got all the qualities and what you're looking for in the modern day wing forward.
Yeah, no, I thought he was very good for the most of the season, but I would say a quietish All-Ireland. He did 2 lovely kick passes that Cillian O'Connor turned into marks, but I thought he was quietish for a lot of the game. And obviously he's on the back of winning a first county title in, I think it was something like 23 years for Knockmore, so he's had a pretty good season. I think I'm going to agree with you on Diarmuid O'Connor. I think he's been excellent as well, and probably just about edges out Sean Bugler here, and maybe the likes of Martin Riley. I'd have been very interested to see where Kieran Thompson would have been in the heel of the hunt if Donegal had to get to an All-Ireland semi-final. I think an honourable mention for Brian Fox as well. Oisín Kiernan, would you put him in this chat?
No, I probably wouldn't. And I think what you touched on there as well about the Donegal Brigade. Like, I was thinking about this and I thought, we're picking the All-Stars, and to be honest with you, you probably can't, and I think we're probably in agreement here, you probably can't look beyond the 4th provincial winners, if we're being honest, because of the year and what it is. It's different, Shane, if there'd have been a back door and a team had played 6 or 7 games, and you could make an argument for someone, but for a team to play 2 or 3 games and not reach All-Ireland semi-final, I think, it probably doesn't warrant, them being in the team. That's only my opinion.
Yeah. Now, to jump into the centre forward slot, there's a nice bit of competition in here. I think Kieran Kilkenny. First off, before we look at the options, are we looking at Kieran Kilkenny as a full forward or a centre forward? I think it doesn't matter that he wears number 11 a lot. He's a full forward only this season.
Well, he is and he isn't, because the way a lot of teams play, Shane, now is that they sort of play a 2 and a 2. So 11, the old 11. Put it like this: the Brian McGuigan days are gone. Okay, the number 11 who plays on the 45, who orchestrates, who pulls strings. them days are really gone when you think about it, because there's nobody really like that. Martin Clark, for example, out and out number 11, play off the 45, make things happen. The orchestrator, pull the strings, link the play, make the little intricate passes. Now you're seeing what you have in forward lines flexibility, and I think that's important when we're selecting this. Like, that we're not actually selecting a Brian McGuigan or a Martin Clark, someone who plays off the 45. We're selecting a man who wears number 11 on his back and who might not play there all the time, but there's times when Kilkenny will go out and Con will come in, and times when Con will go out and Kieran will come in. But you're completely right in what you say. He played a much, much deeper role this year, closer to goal. He performed a role, Shane, which I think was totally opposite to what he's done in previous years. Kieran Kilkenny was the little sort of like cog in the engine that just made things ticking over, making those little passes, making those little, I think his possession count one year was in the hundreds or something like that, and the amount of times he had his hand on the ball in a match. But I have him at 11, but I've also put in Gerard McKernan beside him as a question mark. I think he had a wonderful championship. He's a big outball for Ramey Galligan and kickouts as well. He absolutely, he was a man mountain at times. He's a beast of a man. The contribution he made to Cavan's championship as well is not to be laughed at. You have Michael Quinlivan as well, who would have played, some football at 11 as well. Shane is probably worth to mention as well. Again, probably. But I can't look past Kilkenny here, to be honest.
I can't look past Kilkenny being in the team, but I just feel if you're going to say where was Kieran Kilkenny's best stuff this year, I think it was at number 14. Like, even though we've done a video before where you've talked about the Dublin players doing that backdoor cut. His goal against Laois in Leinster, that came from a backdoor cut, and he volleyed it into the net without ever actually taking it into his hand. I think, like, and I'm going to push the Tipperary side of things here as well. Quinlivan scored 5 points against Cork in that Munster final, and only one of them was from a free, and he scored a couple of beautiful ones for play. I mean, that's Tipperary rising above expectation, and him being a huge part of it. So was Conor Sweeney, but Michael Quinlivan produced some of his best stuff that we've ever seen in that game. And yeah, he didn't have as much of an impact against Mayo. I think he might even have been held scoreless from play in that game. So there's a black mark there if you're trying to pick between a couple. But I just don't know, like, if we're going to pick both Con O'Callaghan and Kieran Kilkenny in this team, yeah, I think you can probably put one at 11 and one at 14. But if we were only picking Kilkenny, I think it would be a little bit, I don't think it would be right to put him at 14. Or at 11, sorry.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, I think we'd be mad not to pick both of them. I think for me, the two of them are in the running. In my honest opinion, the two of them are in the running for Footballer of the Year. I believe anyway. I think it's between three of them. I think Brian Fenton, Kilkenny and Con O'Callaghan have to be given honourable mentions for Footballer of the Year. If you were picking six now, Shane, you would have those lads in the top six. So I've gone with Kilkenny at 11 anyway, and I don't want to ruin it, but I've Con in the team. Like, we'll suss that now in a few minutes, but yeah. So I agree with what you're saying. Like, I totally agree with what you're saying. But for me, at the minute, Shane, there's in every team there's two workers, and then there's four footballers, up front, and you're picking a team of with four marquee players at 11, 13, 14, and 15, and you're picking two with industry at 10 and 12, and that's the way most teams play now. So that's the way I've sort of picked it,
So does it go without saying that Cillian O'Connor is going to be number 15 here, top scorer in the championship for the fifth time in 10 seasons? So that's quite sensational. I haven't filled in 11 and 14 just yet. Kieran Kilkenny is definitely getting in there, but is Conor Sweeney getting in this team?
He's in my team, yeah. I have him at 13.
Right, okay. So you're thinking it's Kieran Kilkenny and it's Conor Sweeney?
Yeah, full forward line, yeah. I just think on the basis of, look, Dean Rock could be in every team for the last 5 years. There's no question about it. He's Mr. Reliable. He's free taker supreme. You can learn so much from young lads. Can learn so much from him. And one of the things, Shane, and I think it's worth mentioning, one of the things young lads could learn from Dean Rock is about perseverance and about work rate and about attitude and about mentality. In 2012, Shane, Dean Rock was dropped from the Dublin panel by Pat Gilroy. In 2013, he was recalled to the panel by Jim Gavin because he had a decent year with his club. In 2015, Shane, he was taken off at half-time because he had a very poor final in the final in 2015. From 2015, he has averaged 3 points from play in every final since. And that's no mean feat. That is no mean feat, and it may seem mad to leave him out, but at the same time, for me, the other three have probably been a greater influence on their team than Dean Rock has been. Just this year, I'm not saying over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, but even Dean Rock's free taking, and Martin Clark mentioned it last night to me, Shane, it's a very interesting point. Dublin for me are fueled by science and data, and they don't even take the low percentage free kicks anymore. Like, if you watch the free kicks that were given around the 45-yard line, most teams would be calling somebody up, or they'd be looking to take this, settle down, we'll take that and we'll have a go at this. And they're the 1 and 3s, as Marty said. They're the 1 and 2s, the 1 and 3s. Dean Rock doesn't take them on anymore. They're given short now and they'll work. You know what I mean? Or they'll pop back to somebody and we'll build them and start again. So it's interesting, and his percentage of free kicking has gone through the roof over the last number of years. And I think a part of that has been the competition for places within the panel and within the squad, and you had other players who are able to hit the free kicks now as well, that are putting him under a bit of pressure, and he knows that he has to be at the top of the game. And look, he's 30 years of age now, and he's probably at the time of his career. But for me, the other three have had a greater impact, I think, anyway, in the championship this year, personally speaking.
I agree with you on that. I think Dean Rock was quiet from playing the final. He got the goal obviously in the first minute, and you can never take away from the fact that a guy gets a goal, which is a huge thing in the final. So I agree with you on that one. I think that the other lads probably do deserve to get in the team ahead of him. So I'm actually going to agree with you there, because I don't think there's any other absolutely outstanding candidates to sort of rise above them. Like Aidan O'Shea probably had a quiet final. I don't think he'd go in there. Paddy Small had a quiet final. Shane Walsh probably, if he had a couple more games, maybe he could have produced something, but sure, obviously Galway only had 1 game. Michael Quinlivan, I think, is unlucky here. And you know what? Luke Connolly, there's obviously not enough to start him in the team, but he came on and changed the game for Cork against Kerry, and his going off against Tipperary was probably one of the most defining factors of that Munster final.
Well, if you want to pick a couple of subs, you get a Luke Kelly or Luke
Well,
Conley, you get a Luke Conley, Michael Quinlivan, and who did you mention there? Aidan O'Shea coming off the bench.
Yeah,
it'd be a nice three to spring into a tired defence, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. And Tommy Conroy's another one. If like he had a quiet final, and I think it wasn't going his way, and you probably could sense that he was going to be brought off during that game. Yeah. But he's another guy.
If we break the team down, Shane, right, we've gone with 6 Dubs, 4 Mayo, 4 Cavan, and 1 Tip. And it's a decent spread. It's a decent spread. I think it's an honourable spread. I think it's a reasonable spread. I think it's a fair selection.
Yeah.
Dublin are obviously going to be, ahead of everyone. But sometimes the Dubs can be. It's more the sum of their parts rather than the individual at times. It's the system, it's the process, it's how effective they are. And you think to yourself, if some of those other players were in that Dublin system, or you took some of those Dublin players, out of that system, would it really make a difference if they're replaced by someone else? Probably not.
One final thing is, I've got a comment in from Richie Kendi on Twitter. He says, "Can't believe Kevin Fahey and Robbie Kiley haven't even been mentioned more when talking about the half back lines. Both had great championships." They did, yeah, they did.
Listen, it was remiss of me probably not to mention. Which one of them played at 6 for Tip? Was it Kiley?
Kevin Fahey played at 6, and Robbie Kiley was 7.
A fantastic championship. I thought Kevin Fahey at 6, Shane, in the Munster final was absolutely superb. I thought he was absolutely superb. He really drove Tip on, and actually I had that in the notes and I forgot to mention it. Apologies to that man there.
If I was to nail you down for a footballer of the year, who would you go with? I know you've kind of named your shortlist, but if you were to sort of gun to the head,
if it was really pushed, I think I would go with Fenton. I just think he's got everything. And listening to a couple of the comments about, I think it was Killian Clark maybe made it on a wee podcast there recently somewhere. was listening to it, and talked about how he just glides across the field, just glides past you, and has that real athleticism. And as I said to you, if he wasn't a Gaelic footballer, he would probably be running in the 800 metres, for Ireland. So he's got that physique, he's got that sort of natural athletic look about him, and he's not pumped up the muscle chain, he just seems so long and lean and athletic, and he's just perfect. He's the perfect specimen of a fella for the game at the minute, and for the position that he plays. And plus as well, Shane, he does so much for play. He links the play, he puts tackles in, he wins his own ball, and wins kickouts, disrupts the opposition's kickouts, and he's just a man now. And plus the fact as well, fella's never lost a championship game in his life. Like, what? It'll be a dark day when he loses one. He won't know what to do.
It's actually got to a stage now where plenty of these dubs have never actually lost a game. I don't think Brian Howard has lost a game. I don't think Niall Scully has. I don't think obviously Sean Bugler is a little bit newer in there. But actually there's 5 or 6 of them now that have never lost a game. A couple of comments in. Jack Nocton said Niall Scully, workhorse of that Dublin team, defo in. And then someone who's down as Sean says, lads, for the love of God, James McCarthy has to be in that team, ahead of McDade, everything else logical. But he didn't play wing back, so how can you have him in when he didn't play wing back?
Sean, I wanted him in.
Yeah, I know you wanted him in, but do you want Galligan out? He played midfield, so if he's in, he's midfield and someone has to get out of there.
Yeah, that's true. No, I agree. You could slide McCarthy in at wing back, but as you say, I don't like. There was one year in particular. I can't remember what it was. It might have been the RTE All Stars, and they had Michael Murphy playing at number 10, and silly things like that. And I think that one year they had a half back playing at 12, and just to squeeze them in. I don't agree with that, Shane. I completely agree with what you're saying. I think it makes it more interesting that you're actually picking the players that are wearing their numbers. They're wearing the right number. They're playing in the right position, and I think that's important.
Yeah. And one other comment in there saying Lee Keegan over Durkin. And I can see a case for that, but he probably played a little bit further back in the field. And Durkin played in the full back line in the final, but obviously that was probably due to an injury reason or a matchup. But more often than not, Durkin was in the half back line.
Against Tip, Lee Keegan played a very disciplined role. He never went forward once. He got to the halfway line, stopped and came back. And the reason for that was he obviously had a job to do on Quinlivan. That was his job, shut Quinlivan down. And to be fair to him, Shane, in the semi-final, he never gave Quinlivan a sniff. And it was Paddy Durkin was put on to Brian Fox. And the reason he was put on to Brian Fox was because Fox plays as tip sweeper, as +1. So it was going to free Durkin up. And you've seen the influence then Durkin had driving forward against Tip, and obviously then the roles reversed against Dublin. Keegan was driving on the front foot in the first half. Durkin sat in and Mark Kilkenny. And maybe, Shane, if Paddy Durkin had been fully fit and played the second half, maybe part of Mayo's game plan was to do that. Maybe it was to let Durkin off the leash in the second half and to drive at Dublin, because Dublin would have been in at half time thinking, well, Durkin's no danger because he's picking up Kilkenny and we don't have to worry about him going forward. But if you looked at Dublin at half time, Shane, and it's something that I spoke about last night, they've got a big statistical analysis team behind them, right? They would have went in at half time and looked at the possession counts that Ryan O'Donoghue had, that Oisin Mullen had, that Killian O'Connor had, the marks that Killian O'Connor was taking. That all just shut down in the second half. Just shut down, and that's testament to how well oiled a machine they are, that they can spot the danger, they can see the holes in the thing, and they can fill them. And that's classic,
For what it's worth, I'd have Kieran Kilkenny as footballer of the year. I just think he was sensational the whole year, and all the promise that we knew was coming when he was first coming onto the scene. Like, for example, I think his debut was that 2012 All-Ireland semi-final against Mayo, and he scored 3 from playing corner forward, starting in place of Alan Brogan, who was injured. I think this was the year that he kind of made good on that in the position where we always thought he was going to play. So to me, I would just about nudge him as footballer of the year, but I can't argue too much on Brian Fenton.
He's got a real distinct way of kicking the ball as well, doesn't he?
I think it looks. I asked him about this about 5 years ago after he came back from the AFL for a while. He sort of holds it like that and kicks, like almost pulls it down towards his foot. He kicks up through it. I don't know. There's a bit of an AFL thing to it. Even Colin O'Riordan, when he came back, there was a bit of an AFL sort of vibe to the way he kicked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah. So that's it. All right. Well, brilliant stuff, Stephen. There's our team of the year. Let us know what you think and get your comments in there. Cheers, Stephen.
Good man, Shane. Thank you.